Hey folks, Roland Martin here today on June 16th. It is Tuesday, June 16th, 2020. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered. African-American man, Indianapolis, shot and killed by cops. We have an exclusive interview with his family right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Most folks are talking about Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd. We will talk about the story of this young man. Ben Crump, the family attorney, joins us right here. Donald Trump unveils a BS executive order at the White House today. All political theater. Is it real? No, it's not. We'll talk to folks about that as well. In addition to that, more white folks acting a fool, losing their jobs by challenging black and brown people when it comes to Black Lives Matter. Y'all gonna learn to stop messing with folks. It's time to bring the funk. Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time. And it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Folks, you might remember the story of Sean Reed, an African-American man in Indianapolis, shot and killed by police. This is the video that took place. He was live streaming this encounter that took place in Indianapolis. Folks, go ahead and run the video. This is his photo right here of Sean Reed. He served in the U.S. Air Force, this happened just a couple of months ago. What happened was he was driving in Indianapolis, and he was actually on Facebook live streaming at the time, and there was an encounter. Then at one point, he jumps out of the vehicle and is running away. Then all of a sudden, he is shot and killed by police officers. His story has not gotten lots of attention. Again, a lot of the attention has really been focused on the Ahmaud Arbery case, as well as the Breonna Taylor case, and of course the George Floyd. But this is another example of an African-American encounter with police. And so we have seen this happening for quite some time. This is one of the things that's being talked about as we speak, as right now the United States Senate, they are actually having a hearing on the actions of police. Of course, last week the House introduced, of course, their bill speaking to this issue. But right now, the senators are actually having this hearing. One of the folks who is testifying is Lee Merritt. Other people, Lee Merritt, of course, is the attorney. There are a number of other people who are also testifying before the senators right now on Capitol Hill. So what I want to be able to do in just a second, let's do this here. Let's go live to the United States Senate right now on that hearing on police reform.
Can transform struggling communities. Project Safe Neighborhoods is the cornerstone of DOJ's anti-violent crime strategy, and that can help us ensure equal justice under the law. In Dallas, we launched our first PSN program in April of 2018, targeting a neighborhood that for decades had been plagued by violent crime. Of course, one of the initiatives' enforcement was to enforce and to root out the offenders that were plaguing this community. Violent gang members and drug traffickers. But importantly, we felt that we needed to build a relationship of trust with this community. So we deployed a consistent and compassionate team of local police department officers and agents, federal agents, that earnestly wanted to form relationships with the people in the neighborhood. And we took steps to foster a community that felt empowered to approach those officers for help, with the assurance that they would be met with respect. To accomplish this, we took several steps. We hosted more than 100 community meetings with neighborhood groups, apartment managers, faith leaders, business leaders, and school teachers to share our vision for the neighborhood and solicit their advice on how to achieve it. Then based on that feedback, Our task force worked to shut down seedy convenience stores, game rooms, and other establishments that were spawning crime. And then we used the important grant money from PSN to implement crime prevention through environmental design, working with a nonprofit organization to redesign a central community square. This vibrant plaza now boasts a mini lending library, recreation tables, and child's craft area. And since completion of this revitalization project, the plaza hasn't seen a single act of violence. Our PSN has yielded real results, and even as Dallas's citywide crime increased, the violent crime in the PSN area decreased. U.S. attorneys across the country are having similar success stories, and we launched 2 additional PSN efforts in my district, in Lubbock and in Amarillo, both of those cities are having undeniably positive results. In PSN Amarillo, we reduced the violent crime there by 13%, and in Lubbock, we've had a 25% reduction in business robberies and a 26% reduction in aggravated assaults because of this community-based approach.
All right, folks, we're going to dip back into that in just a second. But what I want to be able to do is I want to pull up this video here and show you and exactly what took place. And again, you know, we covered this story. But it has not, like I say, gotten a lot of the attention as some of the other cases. And so let me pull this up for a second right here, folks. 1 second. This is right here from WISH TV. Go right to it.
They ain't really follow me no more though. It's only one now. He gonna keep following me.
I'm gonna talk over it. Phone's live. All right, folks. So this is the video. The police are actually following Sean Reed. He's actually live streaming it. You heard him say it's just one car that's following me. And so this is the video here. Now, folks, the total runtime, his camera was running the entire time. The total runtime that his camera was live was 1 hour and 9 minutes. This video right now, we are approaching the 11-minute mark. You're about to see, so you see him. The reason it's important, you just saw him. He's got the pair of athletic shorts on. He has no shirt on, and so that's an important point here. And right here,
It's only one right now.
so you hear him saying, "There's only one." And so he's showing the police car that's behind him. We're at about the 11:20 mark of this video. In just a bit, he is going to actually get out of his car and then take off running. And then you're going to exactly see what took place.
I can't answer on this phone. He hanging out just to let my diamond wait. Hey, nigga, come my way. Then I grab my cake, keep some on my waist.
So I'm purposely allowing this to run because, as you see, they're pursuing him, and he's live streaming it. And then what I'm gonna.
That's crazy, yo.
So I'm giving you a sense of exactly what was happening at that particular time.
What is going on in my life? Uh-oh, I almost lost him, y'all. I almost got rid of his ass. Damn, never mind. I thought I had his ass. I thought I was doing good. He gonna keep chasing me though. This is a long time.
Keep in mind, the family of Sean Reed, they have filed a federal lawsuit against Indianapolis and the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department.
I'm not going to jail today. No, sir. You got to catch me, baby. I'm not going to jail today. I'm not going to jail today.
This took place on May 6th.
Hey, I'm finna be on motherfucking, what is this? What the fuck is this? This is Michigan? Come on.
Now, Reed was shot and killed by police officer
What street is this?
DeJour
I'm finna park
Mercer
this motherfucker to get the
on
fuck out.
May
Oh,
6th.
baby. Oh, baby, what's this? Michigan and what? Michigan and what? Ace? I'm finna park this motherfucker at Ace. On 62nd in Michigan? Somebody come get my stupid ass. Please come get me. Please come get me. Please go get me. I'm on 62nd in Michigan. I just parked this motherfucker. I'm gone. Please come get me. Oh. What you say? Fuck you! Shit!
Police actually shooting. Police actually shooting. So we're gonna be east of 50. Fuck! Oh my God.
Certainly disturbing video there. Now, the police laid out what they say took place, but there were other witnesses who described something different. Joining us right now is Sean's father, Jamie Reed, as well as attorney Ben Crump. Gentlemen, glad to have you on Roland Martin. Okay, okay, Jamie Reed is there. Sorry, we don't have Ben Crump. Waiting to get him. Jamie Reed?
Yes.
All right. Certainly sorry to have you on the show under these circumstances. Police say it was justified, but you as well as the attorneys, you're finding out different information about what happened to your son, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
What's that?
And what's the different information that y'all have discovered regarding what took place with your son?
Well, they just released the officers that were involved in the murder. So
Now,
and
go ahead.
yeah, that was the new information so far. And
Now, witnesses also described something different happening than what they described.
well, they said, you know, they alleged that he shot at them, but everybody know that's a lie. So
And so they claim, and so again, they claim he shot at them, but on that video right there, you don't actually hear anything along those lines. Also, were these cops wearing body cameras?
no, sir. No, sir. That was one of the issues that I brought up when I talked to the chief, and they said they had some type of furlough on the body cam as far as getting them and everything. So, I mean, that's all they gave. That's all the information they said they had as far as body. So basically, they really never had plans on even getting body cams throughout all the years from all the stuff that had happened. So.
Now, after the shooting, the police said that they fired a taser at Dre, but there's no evidence of that.
What's that?
Of the police firing a taser. So, according to the police department, they issued a statement saying officers had attempted to deploy a taser on him and that Dre had fired at law enforcement.
Right. That was the lie they was pushing out, you know, and they still ain't gave up the coroner's report. So that, you know, that really is something that's real suspicious anyway, making it seem like, you know, even though you can hear the video, it's obvious that they tased him and then he fell. So, I mean, I don't understand how you can, you know, it's streamed live. Everybody in the world seen it. So it doesn't make any sense. How can you how can you not go by go by the video? I mean, the video tells everything. Like the taser hitting, you can hear the taser obviously, and then the amount of shots they bring out. So I mean,
I want to bring in Ben Crump right now. Ben, again, the police said that Dre fired at them, yet witnesses say that didn't happen. They even said there was no sign of a gun.
yes.
Yeah, there is absolutely no evidence, Roland, that Dre did anything to cause or justify them to kill him in the manner that they killed him. In fact, the witnesses say, Roland, that the police came up to him after they had already tased him and knocked him to the ground, and that's when they started using the deadly gunfire. So much, in fact, that one of the officers, and it's ridiculous, and I'm so sorry to say this in front of Mr. Reed, especially on Dre's birthday, but when he looked at the manner in which they had shot him in his face multiple times, they said, look like it's going to be a dead casket, homie.
Wow. You have been gathering information. You have been putting this together. As I asked, of course, Mr. Reed, the cops were not wearing body cameras. And so, again, I mean, unfortunately, he's passed away, but the only video that we have is the video that Dre shot.
Yeah.
So we have to believe the police account of what took place.
Yeah, and it's so unfortunate. Thank God they had those witnesses there who were also using their social media devices. And even though they may not have gotten the direct shots that shot Dre, they did get before and after and correct contemporaneous thoughts as they would say, oh my God, they're going to shoot him. They're shooting him. And when you hear the person who's narrating this tragedy, you're saying she's giving a first-hand account, blow by blow, of the murder of a young man that was completely unnecessary. They had him down on the ground. He never pointed a weapon at him. He never brandished a weapon, but yet they still shot and killed him. And remember this, Roland, this is after Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. Everybody's already talking about they continue to kill us, these open season killings. And this is before George Floyd and now Rayshard Brooks. And so we have to let everybody know that in Indianapolis, Indiana, there's also a problem with these I don't even know what you call it, Roland, unnecessary, unjustifiable, senseless. I call it legalized genocide because they kill our children and then they try to use the intellectual justification of discrimination to sweep it under the rug. But thank God for Dre and his family, Mr. Jamie Reed. They're not going to let them sweep it under the rug, nor am I and attorney Monique Presley. We're going to stay focused on getting attention to Dre Reed. We got to say his name too.
Autopsy. It hasn't been released?
Has not been released a month and a half later. So they still don't, the family still doesn't know to this day what bullets went into him, the entry wounds and exit wounds, what are the trajectory of the bullets. You know, we're calling on a Department of Justice investigation because I think, Roland, we've been doing this for almost, decades now. And quite literally, what they want to do always is just try to kick the can down the road, hoping that people will forget about it, that there'll be other black people killed, so nobody will be thinking about how the cops executed Dre Reed. And so that's what I think is going on here. That's why this medical examiner, who I know has finished his autopsy, has not made them public.
Jamie, it has to be difficult. This took place on May 6th. This is June 16th. What would have been your son's 22nd birthday?
What's that?
I said, certainly has to be difficult. This is June 16th, and of course, today's your son's 22nd birthday.
Well, it's hard, knowing he ain't here because
All right, folks, let me know when we get his Skype back. I want to go back to Ben Crump. Ben, again, we see these stories over and over and over again. The police want us to believe their account. But if the police say on one hand, well, he fired a gun, but the witnesses say their gun was fired, here's the other piece. Was a gun recovered?
They recovered a gun, but everything suggests that he never ever pointed a gun, never brandished a gun or anything like that. And so when they kill him, you have to take them at their word. They say they recovered a gun on the scene because they didn't have their body camera videos. And that underscores what George Floyd brother and I were doing when we were testifying at the U.S. Congress, Roland, and we got to march with you on Black Lives Matter Boulevard that evening afterwards. But what we said is if you don't have your police body camera video and somebody that brutalized or worse killed, you should be charged with a federal violation of a new law that we're proposing of obstruction of justice. Because why do we have the body cameras if you're not going to turn them on when you have interaction with citizens? We're going to just assume that it is a rebuttable presumption that you did something wrong, and the burden is on you to prove that you didn't do anything wrong, or you're going to be convicted of obstruction of justice. That would apply most definitely here with Dre Reed case and so many other cases, Roland, where the police said, well, we didn't have our body camera on.
Jamie, you were speaking about today being your son's birthday and how hard it is. Please go right ahead.
Yeah, it's hard. My family back home right now.
Guys, let's do this here. Let's fix his audio because I want him to be able to again. And so, all right, Jamie, try again because your audio was muffled. Go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Yes, it's hard. And my family's back home right now, celebrating his birthday, just, kind of keeping my soul alive down there, just letting everybody know I'm there in love and faith and, just hopefully we need justice for Dre. That's mainly what I'm trying to do. That's what we need to do. That's what Ben Crump and Monique is going to do for me. So, yeah, for our family, we just need justice. I need the officers to pay for what they done. So, but yeah, it's hard.
And being speaking to those officers, they are only on administrative leave.
Yeah, and that's the tragedy of it. They're still being paid by the taxpayers after they kill Jamie's son, and it makes no sense why they would say, unless we can prove that this young man put us in fear of our lives, there's no justification to kill him. And right now, Roland Martin, there is nothing that demonstrates, well, not one scintilla of evidence that says Dre, Sean, Reed ever put their lives in danger. And that's what we have to continue to keep telling everybody. We have to make his name be known far beyond Indianapolis. And I know, Roland Martin, using your platform, you can help get the word out that Dre Reed needs justice. That would be the fitting birthday gift for everybody who's listening to the show today to hashtag justice for Dre and make sure people know the story of Dre Sean Reed in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Absolutely. Jamie Reed, Ben Crump. Gentlemen, we surely appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you.
Folks, let's go live back to the Capitol Hill where the president of Noble is testifying right now.
All officers render immediate medical aid. Mandatory requirements that officers intervene where physical force is being applied to either stop or attempt to stop another officer when force is being inappropriately applied. Noble proposes comprehensive legislation that incorporates the aforementioned, but also includes mandatory law enforcement accreditation as a national requirement, reevaluation of police qualified immunity, provide the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department enforcement oversight against pattern and practice discrimination, continued appropriations for the Department of Justice Community Relations, federal data collection in the following categories: use of force, traffic stops, pedestrian stops, and detentions. A national database that maintains a listing of officers with patterns of misconduct, to prevent negligent hiring and retention. We wholeheartedly support the passing of the Justice in Policing Act, which specifically addresses the loopholes that continue to allow policing tragedies free of oversight and accountability, environments that foster unfettered racial tension, and the continued desecration of what I've always thought to be a noble profession. We also recognize the majority of police officers who demonstrate on a daily basis their love and commitment towards the tenets of 21st century policing and the safety and well-being of the communities they so courageously serve. However, today, at this critical moment in time, Noble encourages Congress to act with deliberate haste to pass transformative legislation to reform the system of policing. As an African-American woman, I can unequivocally attest to the perpetual existence of discriminatory practices that remain a haunting reality for people of color throughout our nation. It is critical that we first acknowledge the pressing need for a comprehensive and holistic approach to change, and then urgently begin the process of mapping the way forward towards policing reimagined, enlisting guardians and not warriors, those who value all communities and the sanctity of life. And finally, on behalf of more than 3,800 law enforcement leaders, mostly minority, who represent the membership of Noble, we thank you for supporting the law enforcement profession, but more importantly, for listening to the voices of protesters and others around the globe who demand change. On this occasion, I am cautiously optimistic that the cries of our America will be heard and acted upon so that once and for all, Black lives are valued in the eyes of all police officers as more than a counterfeit $20 bill, more than a carton of cigarettes, and more important than simply showing up at the wrong address. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Folks, today at the White House, Donald Trump signed an executive order that he said will encourage police departments to adopt higher standards related to the use of force and de-escalating training. Here's what he said.
Today is about pursuing common sense and fighting for a cause like we seldom get the chance to fight for. We have to find common ground. But I strongly oppose the radical and dangerous efforts to defend, dismantle, and dissolve our police departments, especially now when we've achieved the lowest recorded crime rates in recent history. Americans know the truth. Without police.
Come on. I can't keep listening to that bullshit. Here's the real deal, folks. A lot of stuff he was lying in this whole presentation. He lied when he said that previous presidents like Obama and Biden did not try to do anything when it came to policing. That was a flat out lie. In fact, they put in a lot of procedures and practices and rules that Trump rolled back. So I can't get excited because you're actually trying to say you're doing something. The other piece here, when what they laid out is, of course, they had all of these different police officers there, these police unions touting with the creation of this database, attract these officers. Here's the problem. Who's going to pay for it? There's no funding in the executive order. So earlier he also met with families, victims, both from Jean, Ahmaud Arbery's family, and others. Lee Merritt, the attorney, yesterday, Jeff Bennett of NBC reported that Merritt was going to be speaking today at the Rose Garden. He was supposed to speak, but right now, though, first of all, he's actually in that hearing taking place before Congress. Now, but one of the things that Lee Merritt, what he did was he put this tweet here out, actually speaking to that, which was taken by some people to be very critical. This is what he tweeted. Reports of a photo op with the president or standing with the White House during the EO signing are false. Show me the civil rights leaders who are upset about families making a direct appeal for federal intervention after the murder of their loved ones, and I'll show you a clown. Well, the reality is Lee Merritt was supposed to be there. He was going to speak. He opted today not to. Civil rights leaders were also critical of him speaking and also being there with Donald Trump. I want to go to my panel. Davon Love, Director of Public Policy for Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle. Cheryl Dorsey, retired LAPD Sergeant. Dr. Cleo Monago is a political analyst. Cheryl, I want to start with you. Again, this is my perspective. Donald Trump's down in all polls. CNN had him down 14 points. Rasmussen, his favorite poll, had him down 12 points. He's losing independents, white women all across the country. Look at the numbers right now. He's tied with Biden in Texas. He's only up 2 in Arkansas, a state he won by 27 points. He's tied in North Carolina. He's down in other places. Today was all political theater to show he actually wants to do something about police reform because he sees how it's killing his reelection chances.
Well, the problem with all of that is that he was being disingenuous and intellectually dishonest in the reforms that he's putting forth. Listen, nothing that he said today is going to change what patrol officers do day to day, and I know this to be true because I was one for 20 years. And so if you ban a chokehold like they're proposing, okay, we saw Daniel Pantaleo use a prohibited chokehold, a banned chokehold in the murder of Eric Garner, and what did the New York commissioner tell us? That wasn't a chokehold, that was an upper body seatbelt restraint. So banning a chokehold and giving it another name, thereby making it not the thing that it is just intellectually dishonest. If you look at when officers can use deadly force, we've always been able to use it as a last resort rather than a first resort. If you have officers who say that they were in fear for their safety or they thought they were in immediate defense of their life when they shot a man in the back, it's very difficult to argue what's in someone's head. And so all of this really means nothing. And so I'm really disheartened that folks would be so easily led or misled in that the things that they're proposing pretty much already exist, and the things that don't exist are not going to change police officers day to day. What I want to hear them say is accountability. You would think it was a 4-letter word, something that they can't say. When a police officer shows up to roll call and 2 or 3 of their partners are not in roll call in their seat because they're facing federal charges or murder charges, police officers will start to do something different. But if you don't hold them accountable, how do you have a guy who's got 18 personnel complaints? You think Derek Chauvin wasn't on a list? We need another one, a national database. Now we know that Rolfe had a dozen personnel complaints. He was on a list. So just having an officer on a list is not going to stop them from killing us. And what about those 7 officers who just quit over in Minneapolis and can now go to another police department who's more in line with their thinking and would continue to kill, but under a different name, wearing a different uniform? There's a Mississippi police chief who saw nothing wrong with the murder of George Floyd. There's a major on the Tulsa Police Department who says more blacks should be shot. And so there's a place for those officers. 57 walked off New York, Buffalo, New York, ERT. 57 SWAT members in Hollandale, Florida, walked off because they were pissed off. Their leader, their chief, took a knee. It's the mindset, it's the culture. And until you address that, we're going to continue to have this problem.
Cleo, you work with law enforcement there in Los Angeles County. Again, all these people, let's praise Trump. Let's give him credit. This executive order, Cheryl was on CNN earlier, and Van Jones and former Chief Charles Ramsey said, now we have a new floor, if you will. I'm not buying it, because the reality is, I don't believe the Republicans are going to have a serious bill that's tougher than the Democrats' bill, which many say should be even stronger as well.
Roland, I have to say to start that I usually don't watch those videos anymore because it's numbingly painful and it's just sad. So I'm still tripping off the imagery of Dre and knowing that young brother was going to be murdered any moment. So part of my emotionality, but I'm still there. I think we all expect at this point for Donald Trump to perform and say crazy stuff and to lie, because as I've said before, it works. People who support him are not concerned about Black life. They're not concerned about police brutality. I think the sister just broke down a litany of crazy cops, which makes me reiterate the fact that this is not simply a bunch of, or a small group of bad apples. As the sister also said, this is a culture. And I just hope that today's allegedly heightened concern around Black people being murdered, inspired supposedly by George Floyd, does create change. And the reason I say supposedly by George Floyd, because in my opinion, there were some gory deaths that preceded him that didn't result in the kind of a so-called outcry that we're dealing with now, which I still believe is mostly because of the COVID-19 social restrictions and all those things are one of the elements here. But yeah, I mean, of course, Trump was lying. He's always lying. I mean, what's next? Bottom line is we need to change the system, and black people need to hold folks accountable. Vote.
Davon, I can't get excited about an executive order because it's not law. And the bottom line is this here. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, great. I mean, it's good. It's unbelievable. No, I am not. Because the reality is what Donald Trump did today was all about trying to score some cheap political points. He can walk it back on Twitter anytime he wants to. It's a different deal when you sign a bill into law and then you're going to have changes. This executive order, they can slow walk it. They can ignore it. And again, you create a database. Who gives a damn when you don't even say how the database is going to be funded, Davon?
So, exactly. I mean, I think an executive order is typically a president's way of signaling to policy that they don't have the power to enact. And I think it's really important that the issue of police brutality, when we're talking about like the legislative reforms that is necessary, there's a metric that all policy should be filtered through, which is, does this policy undermine the authority that police are given to police themselves? And to the extent that that is undermined is the extent to which a legislative action should be understood to be helpful to that end. One other thing I want to add, because, I watched the speech that Trump gave. And as you and your other guests have mentioned, he speaks in dog whistle, right? He's a PR marketing person to his base. And there was something really important in what he said that I think we have to push back on. And what that is that he talked about the importance of law enforcement in addressing public safety, right? And it's actually one of the things that I think folks on so-called left or people who call themselves radicals, I think don't address that issue to the extent necessary to really talk to our base, like talk to our people. And I think one of the things that Trump is doing is that he's signaling to people who may not be as, politically inclined or people who pay as much attention to policy.
Right.
And when he talks about the importance of public safety, what we have to push back on is to say that the version of public safety that Trump, the FOP, and other kinds of entities are pushing actually does not make us safer.
And is actually different from Noble. And again, they're not listening to black law enforcement officials. I want to wrap all this into this as well. Cheryl, yesterday, the LA County Sheriff came out and said that the hanging of Robert Fuller, 24-year-old in Palmdale, California, now is being investigated as a homicide. But they rushed out and called it a suicide. In Houston, a man was found hanging from a tree overnight. Detectives responded to what, again, they call an apparent suicide near the Houston neighborhood of Shady Acres after video from the scene was circulated online throughout the day. Those who shared the video compared the death to that of two other recent hangings, including Fuller. Now, Houston police later confirmed the man found hanging is Hispanic and his family said he was suicidal. Police Chief Art Acevedo confirmed that there were not sounds of foul play. We've gotten reports of a hanging in Atlanta and two others, a total of 5 here. The thing here, Cheryl, that people are saying is, if you're the police, why do you immediately rush out and say, oh, suicide, as opposed to do an investigation so public can actually trust the investigation? The folks in LA County look like some damn fools today.
I think part of the problem is that some of what they say, and listen, police chiefs are used to speaking publicly, and I think they're very savvy, and I think a lot of times what they say is for prospective jurors down the road, if this thing ever goes to court, I think a lot of it is to try to dirty up the victim. In most cases, in the minds of the public, we hear them say, Mr. Floyd was trying to pass a counterfeit bill. We don't even know if he knew that the bill was counterfeit. We've heard that Mr. Brooks was driving under the influence. I don't know if he was driving under the influence, and so on and so on. And so I think it's an attempt to mitigate the bad behavior, to portray this person in a way that somehow they deserved this thing. You know, they weren't compliant. He took the officer's taser. Whatever it is that they want to say, I think is an attempt to dirty the victim up and put in the minds of the community. And, you know, because they never come back and unring that bell. You can't unhear it once you've heard it, right? It's out there. And I don't think that they are naive when they do it. I think it's a concerted effort in most cases.
And Cleo, that's one of the things that I keep saying. It boils down to trust. When we see example after example after example of police officers lying on reports, lying in their testimony, and all of a sudden you want us to actually believe when they say, oh, this happened, we're all good.
Well, up until very recently, the lies have worked. I mean, in every single case where a black person has been murdered and the cops were on trial, if they went to trial at all, they lied. So that's a norm. In previous years, up until recently, the lies have worked. I think it's important to reiterate that the reason why these hangings, if you will, or so-called suicides, which I don't think they are called suicides, is because the police department is always deflecting any thought of that it might be race-related. Even when it's race-related, they make sure that they call themselves getting to the point of erasing that idea as quick as possible, because the police departments are full of racism. I've seen with my own eyes, and and being anti-black and abusive of black people is a norm. It's games for a lot of these people, and they've never had to worry about it. So that's one of the reasons why they constantly jump to a conclusion that's not race-related when something like a hanging is located. But of course, we're going to have to deal with lies, because if it wasn't for lies, these people would have have lost their jobs. So lying about crimes is a norm. And my concern sometimes, though, is that when black people who are a part of some of these races show up, sometimes like in Walter Scott's case, and in Sandra Bland's case, they show up and co-write a fictitious report to make sure that everybody gets off. So we need to take a look at our behavior, and how some of us feed into white supremacist treachery and murder.
Davon, one of the issues that we're dealing with here when we talk about trying to create this change and trying to get true police reform is that we also are fighting this mental block that I believe people have with holding police accountable. I have great respect for Congressman Jim Clyburn, but I think he is absolutely wrong on the issue of defund the police, because he's buying into what somebody else's narrative is as opposed to, no, let's stop pouring millions and millions of dollars into the exact same thing that's not working. Defund the police does not say, hey, we want to wipe all police officers off the map. No, what it's saying is we simply don't want to keep pouring money into the existing system. Let's have mental health people respond to a mental health crisis. When you get a phone call and it's a mental health crisis, a police officer should not be showing up without a mental health expert with them. That's what people are saying, and I think part of the problem here is that you have all these Republicans, of course, line up against it, but you have Democrats who don't understand what people like you and others are saying when they say we've got to, they went, well, why can't you just call it reform the police? Because that's also not the same. Go ahead.
So a few points that are important. The first is that in a place like Baltimore, where out of about a $3 billion budget, the city spent over $500 million on policing. So look at it just from purely a customer service perspective. You're spending $500 million on something that has not been effective, right? So that's one piece. So what that should do is it should cause us then to think about what are the mechanisms of public safety that are alternatives that are more cost effective, but just generally more effective. One of the things that, the great John Henrik Clarke once said is that there's societies that don't have a word for jail because they didn't have it. And I think a part of the problem with living in Western civilization is that many of us can't imagine a world, without police, without prisons. And to your point, this isn't to say that we abolish all those things right now, because the most important thing about the question of defunding is the importance of building those alternative community safety, the alternative infrastructure that is necessary to facilitate community safety, right? You mentioned the example of like a mental health professional, right? I think that includes, networks that exist indigenously within our communities, right? That can be more proactive in addressing conflicts. And in fact, those who have been involved in addressing conflicts without the police, right, have used the networks within the community as a resource to figure out how to resolve conflicts that lead to violence. So I think when we talk about defunding police, part of the problem is that people just conceptually, to your point about this mental block, people have conceptually wed themselves to a vision of the world that requires the existence of police. And a part of what we're saying is we're saying two things. One is, what are the kinds of reforms that can get us closer to a world where we can eventually abolish police, right? And we have to have the imagination to be able to think that such a world can exist. And I think that requires people to study non-Western civilizations that, again, don't have police. But what it also requires is for us to look at the actual ways in which public safety is carried out,
right,
and look at what are different ways to do it.
Roland?
Cheryl, real quick.
Uh-huh.
Hold on, Cleo, real quick, go ahead.
You used the term earlier that the system is not working. And I think it's important that we understand that there's...
No, the system is not working for us, but it's working exactly how it was designed against us.
That was the point I was getting ready to make, that the system is working for people who are racist, anti-Black, and into controlling Black populations and destroying Black lives when they get the opportunity. And that's why, because it's a culture that is working and has worked for many decades at least, when there's a pushback, people go into lie in fantasy mode, into this disorienting dilemma, because the culture is being pushed back. But the culture has worked just fine for people who believe that our lives don't have that much value and that we're just playthings to kill at the whim of certain people.
Cheryl, the thing is this here. I didn't hear anybody today at this executive order talk about qualified immunity. And the reality is, as long as a lot of these police officers know they can act a fool and I'm good, my pension is fine, the city, y'all can pay those lawsuits, I'm just going to keep doing what I do.
Absolutely, and that's part of the accountability that I speak of, because there's no specificity. In addition to dealing with qualified immunity, the police officers' Bill of Rights, officers are given a certification in order to be a cop, post police officer standard and training. Imagine, if you will, if you were to go out and get 3 speeding tickets in a month, or God forbid, you get in your car and decide every day you're going to engage in vehicular manslaughter, DMV would take your driver's license, right? How is it then that a police officer who has racked up 18 personnel complaints, a dozen personnel complaints, involved in uses of force, deadly force, continues to be certified, continues to have that license, given the gift of resignation, not terminated when they do commit a murder, like Betty Shelby, who was given the gift of resignation and went over to a neighboring police department, like Timothy Loman, who was given the gift of resignation and left Independence Police Department and went over to Cleveland. How about we take those officers post-certification so that they can't go from department to department to department? Wouldn't that be helpful? Wouldn't that be meaningful? But, you know, they talk a good game, but when it comes to actually putting teeth behind reform that will rein in errant officers, they don't. And so if you don't deter the bad behavior, why would I, if I have 18 personnel complaints, why would I do anything differently? Had they dealt with Derek Chauvin at 6 or 7 or 12, Mr. Floyd would be here today.
There you go.
Hey, Roland,
Cheryl, Davon, I got about 20 seconds. Go.
So I think one hard conversation we're going to have is the role of labor, because a big part of what law enforcement hides behind is the collective bargaining. And so it's going to be important for labor to come together to be able to do things like take folks' pension.
Right.
Or be able to do things to say, like those. And that's a hard conversation that labor's going to have to really demonstrate their solidarity with Black folks on this issue.
Davon Love, Cheryl Dorsey, Cleo Monagos, really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks, got to go to a break. When we come back, crazy as white people losing their jobs by confronting Black and brown people. I keep telling y'all, please go right ahead. You can solve Black unemployment all yourselves. We'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it Black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.
No chocolate grills are allowed.
Not eating you.
white. I got you, huh?
Yeah, illegally selling water without a permit on my property.
Whoa! Hey! Number. Give us your address.
You don't live here.
I'm uncomfortable.
Well, a Philadelphia man was caught on video tearing down Black Lives Matter signs. When questioned, this was his response.
I know, it's the city. I pay for this.
Oh, you pay for that?
Yeah, my taxes pay for this place. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Just so you know. So I can do whatever I want.
Oh, you can do whatever you want.
You're fucking right, I can.
All right.
And I'm always around here, too.
Great. I live right here, too.
Good. I'm always around. You're welcome.
Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. Not to me, they don't. Good. You can call it any way you want. You can go fuck yourself, though.
Well, guess what, y'all? He ain't got a job. The man was identified as Michael Hinkle, who worked as a supervisor writ server from the 1st Judicial District Family Court in Philadelphia. Worked, as in past tense. He has been fired. See, I just keep trying to explain to y'all. Stop acting a fool. How about this? White woman in California acts a fool by dogging this man who's Asian, who's writing on his own property. Watch this.
Is this your property? Hi, I'm asking you if this is your property.
Why are you asking?
Because it's private property.
Because it's private property,
So,
sir.
are you defacing private property, or is this your building? You're free to express your opinion. But not on people's property.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Just respectfully.
Sure.
So we're just saying, absolutely, your signs and everything, and that's good. This is not the way to do it.
Okay.
It's private property.
But if I did live here and it was my property, this would be absolutely fine. And you don't know if I live here or if this is my property.
We actually do know. That's why we're asking.
Oh, really? Because you live here, right? You said so.
Because we know the person who does live here.
Oh, okay.
So
Then
that's all
I
we
suggest
wanted
you
to
call
ask.
him
I'm not
or
disagreeing with
call the
you.
police.
Why do you
Or
wanna call the police?
because
What do you
you're
want me
accusing me
to?
of a crime, correct?
What I'm asking you is why are you
And I'm
doing
not
this?
answering you.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
So your choices are to call the cops if you believe I'm calling a crime, and I will more than be happy to talk to him.
Okay, thank you.
What's your name again?
I'm Lisa.
Lisa, what's your last name?
What is your name?
What's your name? I asked
I'm
first,
not
Lisa.
committing a crime,
What's your name,
sir.
sir? What's your last name, sir?
What is your first name, sir?
I'm not answering. I'm not talking to you. You're talking to me. I'm asking you the questions.
Well, we're not doing anything illegal.
Neither am I.
Actually,
Yes,
you are.
actually.
Really? Oh, okay. Well, then call the cops.
Thank you. We will do.
Lisa and Robert.
Yeah.
I'll be right here.
Okay, thank you.
Bye. And that, people, is why Black Lives Matter. That's Karen, and she's calling the cops. And this is going to be really funny. Because she knows the people who live here. Personally.
Well, there's a problem. The man who was talking is James Guanillo. He lives there. It was his property. That Karen, she's the CEO of her own cosmetics company. Lisa Alexander, she's the founder and CEO of LaFace Skincare. They have since taken down their website after this video went viral. She issued this apology. There are not enough words to describe how truly sorry I am for being disrespectful to him last Tuesday when I made the decision to question him about what he was doing in front of his home. I should have minded my own business. It's a longer apology, y'all. And she went on to talk about how because he had offered for them to meet for drinks or coffee or lunch or whatever. She said she wants to do that because she wants to learn more because she realized she screwed up. Oh, but it's better. Her husband, Robert. Well, y'all, Robert doesn't have his job anymore. Yeah, that's what happens when you're sitting here married to a Karen and then you want to support your Karen and then things change. Go to my iPad, please. The company Raymond James fires employee who confronted Black Lives Matter demonstrator. Yeah, y'all, that's the deal right there. This is what they said. After an investigation into the circumstances of a video alleging racism by one of our associates, we've concluded that the actions of he and his partner were inconsistent with our values and the associate is no longer employed with Raymond James. See, y'all, here's the deal, Robert. You thought you were supporting your Karen. Now you don't have a job. See how that works? Now, I would hope Raymond James would promote somebody African American into Robert's former job. And see, Lisa, she's trying to figure out what in the hell she's now going to do with her cosmetics company because the website is down. See, these things keep happening over and over again because you got some white folks in America who don't know how to mind their own damn business. They, for some reason, want to challenge and step in and question folks. But y'all saw how arrogant she was? Saying, no, we know who lives here. Y'all, that was just so gorgeous. Can y'all roll Karen again? I just want to see it for myself again.
Is this your property? Hi, I'm asking you if this is your property.
Why are you asking?
Because it's private property.
Because it's private property,
So,
sir.
are you defacing private property, or is this your building? You're free to express your opinions, but not on people's property.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Just respectfully.
Sure.
So we're just saying, absolutely, your signs and everything, and that's good. This is not the way to do it.
Okay.
It's private property.
But if I did live here and it was my property, this would be absolutely fine.
Totally.
And you don't know if I live here or if this is my property.
We actually do know. That's
Do y'all have the Kentucky
really?
protest?
Because you live here, right? You
no,
said so.
because we know the person who does live here.
Oh, okay.
So
Then
that's all
I
we
suggest
wanted
you
to
call
ask.
him
I'm not
or
disagreeing with
call the
you.
police.
Why do you
Or
wanna call the police?
because
What do you
you're
want me
accusing me
to?
of a crime, correct?
What I'm asking you is why are you
And I'm
doing
not
this?
answering you.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
So your choices are to call the cops if you believe I'm calling a crime, and I will more than be happy to talk to him.
Okay, thank you.
What's your name again?
I'm Lisa.
Lisa, what's your last name?
What is your name?
What's your name? I asked
I'm
first,
not
Lisa.
committing a crime,
What's your name, sir? What's your last name, sir?
What is your first name, sir?
I'm not answering. I'm not talking to you. You're talking to me. I'm asking you the questions.
Well, we're not doing anything illegal.
Neither am I.
Actually,
you
you are.
are actually.
Really? Oh, okay. Well, then call the cops.
Thank you. We will do.
Lisa and Robert.
Yeah.
I'll be right here.
Okay, thank you. So
Bye. And that, people, is why Black Lives Matter.
Woo! Bye, Robert Larkin. You lost your job for being an ass. Speaking of being an ass, this took place, y'all, in Ohio. Watch this video where there was a protester, white guy, who goes to protest, and a bunch of Trump people are standing around. Cops are standing there. My man gets assaulted. Cops do nothing. And the cops actually sound as if they're with the Trump people. Watch these crazy ass white people.
Shove that your ass, you little bitch! Sir, I just got punched in the back of the head. Get out of here, motherfucker! You better get him going back there. Take care of that. We can take a return from you. Okay, where am I allowed to demonstrate? Cincinnati.
And it goes to show you the crazies that we're seeing all across this country. All right, folks, coming up next on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Where do we go from here? Chaos or community? What must men? What must black men be doing? Over the next week, we're going to be focusing on this show about what brothers are doing in this moment. Now, why am I saying that? Because, well, we've featured the Black Women's Roundtable. You got sisters out there who are protesting, but what should black men be doing? Coming up next, we've got a fantastic panel. Reverend Dr. Frederick Douglass Haynes out of Dallas, Reverend Dr. William Barber, Philip Agnew, co-founder of the Dream Defenders, Congressman Bobby Scott. We've also got Hill Harper on the show as well. We have Dr. Greg Carr, who is on the show as well, coming up next to discuss this. Also, folks, joining us is Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner, who is joining us. This is in partnership with my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. We are going to talk about, again, the urgency of now, not just calling alpha men. It is a call to arms for alphas, but it's also a call to arms for other black men to be engaged in what's happening in the streets right now in this country, but also when it comes to November. That is next, right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. All right, so a lot of y'all are always asking me about some of the pocket squares that I wear. Now, Robert don't have one on. Now, I don't particularly like the white pocket squares. I don't like even the silk ones. And so I was reading GQ magazine a number of years ago, and I saw this guy who had this pocket square here, and it looks like a flower. This is called a shibori pocket square. This is how the Japanese manipulate the fabric to create this sort of flower effect. So I'm going to take it out and then place it in my hand so you see what it looks like. And I said, man, this is pretty cool. And so I tracked down, it took me a year to find a company that did it. And so they make these about 47 different colors. And so I love them because, again, as men, we don't have many accessories to wear, so we don't have many options. And so this is really a pretty cool pocket square. Now, what I love about this here is you saw when it's in the pocket, you know, it gives you that flower effect like that. But if I wanted to also, unlike other, because if I flip it and turn it over, it actually gives me a different type of texture. And so therefore it gives me a different look. So there you go. So if you actually want to get one of these shibori pocket squares, we have them in 47 different colors. All you got to do is go to RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. So it's RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. All you got to do is go to my website and you can actually get this. Now, for those of you who are members of our Bring the Funk fan club, there's a discount for you to get our pocket squares. That's why you also got to be a part of our Bring the Funk fan club. And so that's what we want you to do. And so it's pretty cool. So if you want to jazz your look up, you can do that. In addition, y'all see me with some of the feather pocket squares. My sister, who's a designer, she actually makes these. They're all custom made. So when you also go to the website, you can also order one of the customized feather pocket squares right there at RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. So please do so. And of course, it goes to support the show. And again, if you're a Bring the Funk fan club member, you get a discount. This is why you should join the fan club. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.
I looked out. The field it looked like 1.5 million people.
It took almost 4 years for Trump to get the crowds he wanted. After years of Donald Trump's divisiveness and discord, America is coming together. This year, we have a choice to make. America or Trump. Imagine how big the crowds will be when he's gone. A new day begins on November 3rd. Paid for by the Lincoln Project, which is responsible for the content of this advertising.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.